So, are you thinking of overseeding your lawn in the autumn, getting ready for the winter period? Well, in this video, I'm going to take you through the process that I follow, and hopefully you'll find that helpful, interesting, and maybe some little hints and tips along the way. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are now in the middle of October. We're in the garden again, and we're now going to be preparing ourselves to overseed the lawn ready for the winter period. Now, I'm going to admit I've never actually done this before. Usually I get really excited about the lawn care in the spring. So when the winter is finished, I get ready in the spring period, get all excited to get it ready for the summer, so obviously we can make use of it. We love being out in the garden, love getting the barbecue out and that type of thing. And then I have to admit, up to now I've always neglected the lawn. Once the kind of summer period's over, I kind of typically lost a little bit of interest, and I still cut it, and that's all I really do. So this year I've decided to take it a little bit further, obviously give it a try as far as overseeding, because what usually happens, as you can see, we've got a lot of shade today, and this is typical now at this time of year in our garden. And what I always find is over the winter period the lawn gets really thin. By the time next spring comes, there's a lot of work to do. I've got to do a lot of seeding, and obviously because the grass is quite thin, all the weeds start to kick in, so there's a lot of weeds to get rid of. So this year what I'm going to try and do is do some overseeding now in the autumn, which officially you should be doing if you want to get that nice thick lawn surviving through the winter period. So I'm going to go through the process today. Come along with me for the ride, and then obviously I'll be doing some follow-up videos so we can see how it works through the winter. Obviously let's hope in the next spring that it'll be a lot better. So just to cover what we've done, we've got a lot of equipment today, a lot to get done. So what we're going to do, first of all, we need to cut the lawn, and we need to cut it with the box on to get rid of those clippings, and we need to cut the grass very short. We need it as short as possible because obviously we need to get that seed down. We're then going to scarify it. So I've got my electric scarifier out today, so we're going to scarify the lawn, and that's really just to open up the surface of the soil and really to create sort of lines in the soil where the seed can sort of bed in. Once we've done that, we can put a layer of topsoil on top, and to obviously cover that seed, protect it from birds and the general elements as well. So as I say, I'll go through the process. Let's go through it together, and then obviously over the next few months we can see how it is. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lawnmower together, and then get the lawn cut, and then we can go from there. Okay, so that is the lawn cut. It actually took quite a long time to do. It was a little bit of a mess as well, because it was a little bit longer than I initially wanted. Now, when we're overseeding, it's very important that we cut the grass as short as we can, because obviously we need to get that good seed to soil contact. But the grass was quite long. We didn't have much of a summer, so the weather actually is now still quite nice. Because I think we didn't get a summer, it seems to be pushing over into sort of September, October now, the sun. So although it's getting a bit cooler in the evenings, generally in the day, although this lawn is quite shaded, we're still getting quite a bit of sun. Now, for grass seed to germinate, it's very important that we have the right conditions. So first of all, the soil temperature needs to be at the correct temperature, which I would say we're just about good now. Ideally it would have been nice to have done this maybe a couple of weeks ago, but other circumstances obviously got in the way, so I've only been able to get out now. As I say, it's middle of October, so it's still okay. It's still a good time to give that a go, and as I say, the temperature is still pretty good. The growth of the grass is quite long. So yeah, typically I would not advise cutting. You would have seen there how long the grass was, and cutting it down that much, obviously it's going to put quite a bit of stress on the grass. But because we're overseeding, I'm not too concerned. Obviously we need to get it as short as possible. Like I say, good seed to soil contact, and also we don't want to be cutting the grass for a while once the seed is down, so quite important there. Now this is a good opportunity to first of all look for any weeds, because we're going into the winter. There are going to be weeds that's going to start to kick in. Now the idea of overseeding for us is to obviously minimize the amount of exposed soil, therefore weeds can't settle in so quickly. So first thing I want to do is actually have a look over the lawn to make sure, is there any sort of weed grasses. Now strangely, 3 or 4 weeks ago I did a video on leather jackets, which hopefully you've seen. If you're not, you know, check that one out as well. When I did that, I actually come across some weed grasses in the lawn, but I think because of the sunlight today, I can't seem to find them, and it looks generally quite good. Now, if I did come across any weed grass, then what I'd say to you is cut it out, get it cut out. This is the time now to get it cut out. So I'm going through the lawn, but generally it looks okay. What we have got, as you can see, if we get down close here, we've actually got some quite a few patches. So although the grass is quite healthy from a distance, once we get down, you can see here that we've got quite a few worm casts coming in, and some of the grass here is starting to get pretty thin. Now, this is the idea of overseeding. We want, obviously, now this grass is pretty short, it's exposed this soil, we can get this seeded up nicely, and then we can cover it with some topsoil as well, which will help that germinate quite well. Now, there are areas of the lawn that are worse than others, so if you've seen one of my previous videos, you'll know this is our corner that gets the least amount of sun. A little bit of moss there in the corner, which I have been treating, and the grass is definitely thin here, so we need to spend a little bit more time on that area, whereas other areas to the left of the lawn here, you can see we still get quite a bit of sun, so generally this is okay. But yeah, just have a little walk around, make sure there's no weeds, that's the first thing, and get those cut out. And then the next stage is to now scarify the lawn. So the scarifier I've got is this Einhell one here. I'll set this up in a minute and show you how it works. It's a lovely piece of kit, it's quite affordable. I think this was about £90, which I think is quite reasonable. Now, it's got two types on it. It's actually got a power rake and a scarifier, or they call it an aerator. I don't actually think the naming they use is quite correct, but what we're going to be using is this one here. So this one is basically going to be drawing lines in the soil. Now, the idea of this is to, first of all, it's to pull out any thatch. If you've got a thatch layer, now generally we don't have a lot of thatch. You would have seen a minute ago when I showed in that zoomed bit, you can see our soil is actually quite exposed quite nicely, so we don't really suffer with a lot of thatch here, but it's still worth doing, because obviously if there is any weed grasses, dead thatch and things like that, this will help to pull that out, and it will also draw little lines in the soil, which will make it easier for the seed to kind of bed in. So what I'll do, I will now get this set up. I need to get the extension lead out because this is a electric one rather than battery, and then I'll show you how I set it up, and then yeah, let's get going with it. Okay, so I've just finished setting up the scarifier there. As I say, this is a really good one. I love this little thing. If you're obviously a commercial gardener or you've got a really large lawn, it might not be the best, but for a small lawn like we have, this little thing is perfect. I'm sure it was around £90. I could be wrong. What I'll do, I will put a link in the description to this. Now, this is actually adjustable. It has 3 height adjusters on the top. Now, what I like to do is I actually like to use this as a verticutter, and I think next spring or summer I'll do another video on that. But verticutting is the process of not actually scoring the ground, but actually going through the lawn, and exactly what it says, verticutting the grass. So usually, obviously, you cut off horizontally across the grass. With a verticutter, you can cut into the grass and cut things like when you get like meadow grass weeds, you know, the weed grass like meadow grass, they usually grow horizontally and not vertically. So with a verticutter, you can actually cut into the lawn. Now, verticutters are quite rare and quite expensive, but I actually think this is pretty good. So this has got 3 settings, 3 depths, so 1, 2 and 3. Obviously 1 is quite light, 2 medium, and then 3 is quite deep. What I also find is you're supposed to put 0, obviously lifts it up so the blade is off the ground, so you can move it around, so you can walk it to your shed or your garage, that type of thing. But I actually find putting it on 0 is actually quite good, because you can then use this blade to then verticut, because what it will do is it will just brush over those grass blades to cut them vertically without actually penetrating the soil. So it's actually been a really good little piece of kit. But as I say, I will do another video. That's something I think later, early next year, we'll cover that. But for today, yeah, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to give this a go to do a little bit of aeration and obviously get those score marks in the ground. Now, what I want to do is I want to start off on the lowest setting first. So we're going to try number 1. And then see what that's like. Obviously, if we then want to go deeper, we can do, but it's obviously always better to start off as light as possible. And this thing moves pretty quick, so once you hit that power button, you've got to move. If you stand still, it will rip the grass up, and we don't want to do that. We just want to be going over it pretty lightly and just scoring and leaving those marks ready for the seed. So I'm going to get this powered, plug it in and power it up, and let's get going. Okay, I'll show you what that's done. So it's actually done quite a good job there. So if we get down here, you can actually see these little lines. This has obviously created a little bit of aeration in the lawn, which is lovely, and that's always good. But more importantly for what we're trying to do is it's created a nice little bed for the grass seed, and that's gone all the way along the lawn. You can see when you get down here, it's lovely because that's where now our seed will have somewhere nice to bed in. Now when you're scarifying a lawn, it's actually, look, it leaves quite a lot of grass, dead sort of grass. It pulls up all of the dead grass, the weak stuff, which is really good. So it does thin the lawn out quite a lot, especially if you go into this corner here. You can see here, even though we've got a box on that Scarify, it does leave a lot behind. So what I'm now going to do is just go over with the rotary mower just to take up any loose grass, just to tidy it up, and then we can get onto the seeding. Okay, I thought I'd just show you the grass seed that I'm using. Now obviously the grass seed that you will use will be completely different depending upon your circumstances. So we've got a small lawn here, usually sort of autumn, winter, at least 50% of the lawn is in shade. We do get full sun with no shade in the summer, so it's not too bad. So I usually like to use lawnsmith.co.uk for a lot of my lawn care equipment and seeds and that, and feeding and that type of thing. And this is their Stay Green range, which I brought this only sort of in the spring, so it's pretty new. I've been using it just this year. This is a good all-round family seed, so if you're like us and you need obviously something strong with the kids running on it, and this is probably a good one. You can see there, for a drought tolerant family lawn, it says. So yeah, I find this quite good. Now for our size lawn, I actually need 500 grams of seed, so I've just put it into my Westland spreader that I've got here. I will admit I'm not a big fan of this spreader. If you've watched my earlier video, one of my earlier videos, I think it's the video where I talk about our mulching lawnmower, I mentioned in there that I'd only recently put a 3-month lawn feed onto the lawn, and this spreader, the catch is kind of gone on it, so some of the lawn feed have got it hadn't come out evenly. I've ended up with some burn patches. Now luckily those burn patches are more or less gone in the lawn, but because we've obviously gone over and we've scarified the lawn anyway, it's bare in quite a few places anyway, so it really doesn't matter now. I mean, if you get down into this corner here, see these bits here, these were actual burn marks of the feed. Another one is here as well, this little patch here. But because the lawn is quite patchy now anyway, because the grass is starting to thin, I'm not going to put any extra effort on those patches. I'm just going to reseed the entire lawn. Because we've scarified it, we've been able to thin out the grass anyway, so we can now give it a nice even coat. So what I'm going to do on the spreader is set it on the correct nozzle for what we use, and then I'll go up and down. I'll probably go a few times. I usually like to start on a lower setting, just get a feel of how it's going, and then if obviously we need to up it, we will do. But yeah, let's get going. Okay, so that's the seed down. It's gone down quite well actually. Like I say, with the spreader, I usually put it on a low number. I prefer to put it on a low number and just keep going over the lawn. I know that the amount of seed that I had is perfect for this size lawn, so it's just a case of keep going over, keeping an eye and making sure we're getting it as even as possible. If we have a look now, we can see we've got some nice, all these patches now nicely covered, which is going to take off really beautifully. Because we've done that scarification, we've actually got those lines in that soil, and those seeds have been able to sort of bed down in there as well, which is really good. Now one little other technique that I try and do, obviously I did mention we're going to put some topsoil on this as well, because we do want to, although the soil is a little soft, which means we're going to get some good contact on those seeds, just putting some topsoil over the top of those seeds as well will just help to sort of really bed them down. But before we do that, what I like to do is actually get the broom out and brush the lawn. Now that sounds quite crazy, and if you do this, your neighbours might think you're a little bit nutty. But what we want is, if we look down here, obviously our lawn is quite thin, so we've actually, a lot of the seeds have been able to touch the soil anyway. But what you will find, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but some of these seeds, look, they sit on top of the grass blades. So if we run the broom just over the top, it just knocks those seeds down, so they fall down. So obviously getting as much contact as we can, because any seeds that aren't touching that soil, they won't germinate, and therefore we're wasting them. So I'm just going to quickly go over with the broom, give it a little brush, just get those down, and then yeah, we can then get onto the topsoil. Okay, so when it comes to topsoil, you do need to be a little bit picky about what you get, because some of the brands I've found have got stones and that type of thing, which you really don't want, and that it does really frustrate me, because when it's lawn topsoil, it really should be completely free of that stuff. Now I find this stuff, Westland topsoil, some batches I've had aren't always perfect, but generally it's pretty good. Now I've only actually got one bag of this. Now on this lawn I usually will use 3, maybe even 4 bags if I'm doing a real thick cover. At the moment I'm really just going to use what I've got. We're getting to that time of year where garden centres stocks are getting a little bit low and things like that now anyway, so I'm not really going to go out and buy any more, so I'm just going to make do with what I've got here. So I'm going to try and make this single bag go across. Now I'm not too fussed if we don't cover every inch of the lawn, but I think those large patches where there's a chance of that seed even washing away when it comes to rain and that type of thing, we need to make sure they're covered. So what I'm going to do, I will sort of empty the whole bag onto the lawn and use a rake to break that out. So I'll do maybe split it into quarters. But with this one, because I want to make sure it covers everything, I'm just going to slit the top, and I'm going to walk up and down and just spread it across, and then I'm going to use the rake. So rather than sort of emptying the whole bag into a lump and then spreading it out, I'll just kind of walk up and down and try and get a little bit more of an even coverage to make this last a little bit longer. So let's get going. There you have it guys, all done finally. It was quite a bit of work there, and as I say, I only have 1 bag, so I've had to spread that quite thin. There's areas that aren't fully covered, but to be honest, I'm really happy with that. That's good enough for what I need. As I say, we had some patches down here, if you recall, that were from our fertilizer burn a few weeks back, and I've managed to cover all those. Basically any large patches, the same again in the corner where we always get very thin patches. I've made sure we've got plenty of soil covering that. But we don't want all of the seed covered 100%. You can see there's some exposed there. We just need to basically give it enough cover that it's protected. We don't want to smother it. If we smothered it, it can't get any sunlight. It still needs to get sunlight, but just enough to keep it moist, and that should do quite nicely. So you can see, always looks a little bit of a mess once you've done it initially, but obviously this time next week, this grass will be long again, so all that soil would have embedded down nicely, and then obviously hopefully that seed, I would say in the next couple of weeks, that seed should take. Now if we look at the pack here, it does say the first mowing should be, the grass should be 5 to 7 centimeters. So really what I probably will do is I'm cutting this once a week at the moment. I'll probably leave this next weekend, let it grow quite long, and then maybe the following weekend give it a very, very high cut, just take the tops off, so we can obviously give this a chance to really take. But really that's it. The only other thing to add to this is fertilizer. So I haven't actually tried putting a post fertilizer on top. I know a lot of people do. A lot of professionals will advise that as well. So Lawnsmith actually do a fertilizer that you can put on top of new seed, and it helps speed up the germination process and the growth. Sounds pretty good. I've never actually given it a try. So actually I'm really keen to hear, have you tried doing an autumn overseed? How have you, how does your method compare to this? And I'd be really interested to know if you've tried the fertilizer as well, like a post seed fertilizer, and has that made a difference? So as I say, I'm not going to try it this year because I haven't actually got any, but it might be something I'll give a try next year. But as I say, yeah, do let us know your comments and thoughts, and obviously do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. And what I'll do, I'll catch you in the next one.